I love that graphic. It's so legit.
Looks a lot better than it did week 1, that's for sure. And hey, like they said, ESP doing a great job here, making things better and better each and every week. And as soon as we get into that Aria studio, it's going to look top quality.
I think we need like the epic movie voice guy going like, pick and bear.
Well, Tony coming off the board, Lyra following shortly thereafter. 2 best captains gone. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams kind of adapt to that. We've seen a lot of Lorelei, excuse me, a lot of Lorelei already this weekend. Leon playing it to great effect. I'm not exactly sold on its effectiveness thus far, but I think that as we kind of go and as we get a chance to kind of go back, analyze, break down things, maybe we'll understand a little bit more. Kroll, Celeste, not surprising pickups at all. Very strong in the 3.1 meta, but I believe both of them getting toned down a little bit for 3.2.
Yeah, it's something that we'll have to keep our eyes on for next week, how it's going to pan out. But right now, as you mentioned, it is 3.1. We are playing on 3.1 all weekend here at the Preseason Invitational. So it's still going to be very, very strong. There's going to be finally the Reza getting picked up. It's been banned away in our first 2 games. Salty Potatoes going to get their hands on that hero. And we've talked about Salty Potatoes before this draft. We haven't really talked about Wolves thus far today. And Wolves, this is a team that has a lot to prove. They definitely did not look very strong in their 2 matchups last week, so they really want to come into this one strong, and it starts in the draft. They need to have a strong draft if they're going to have a chance here.
Absolutely. They can only go up from here. Honestly, they have to have gone back, looked at their first 2 games, figured out, assessed, analyzed exactly what it is that they could be doing in order to figure out how they can improve. I really like their drafting this far. Samuel and Kroll, 2 picks that work very well together. They're very strong in the current meta. I think Kroll plays pretty well into Reza, especially. Samuel just needs to make sure that he's kiting well enough such that Reza is not getting on top of him. Salty Potatoes, though, going for that Idris pick.
And this Idris pick is one that's been very hit or miss. When it's on, it is so strong. We saw Hundor absolutely deleting targets with this pickup, but we have also seen it kind of fall flat. So it really, it's a hero that relies on that early game to go well. He needs to get a lot of farm, and that's something that Wolves, I hope they identify, because if you can get into the Idris's lane and just disrupt him all throughout the early game, constantly harass him, push him out of the lane, deny him CS, he is going to struggle.
Definitely. Taka, another great pickup. Another alpha ban too, though. Definitely a hero that teams have been putting a little bit of priority into. I'm sure that that's part of the scrim meta. Alpha also very tanky, very strong, can be flexed decently well between both crystal power and weapons. So I think that that makes sense here. Taka going to be another problem that Celeste is going to have to watch out for and make sure that she's aware of.
And there's a lot of pressure in terms of the diving that can come through for the side of Salty Potatoes already. So I'm really happy to see that Wolves actually did pick up that Taka, because it just denies away another assassin if Salty Potatoes wanted to go for an all-in diving assassination sort of composition. But even without having the Taka, they still have a composition that can easily do that. The Celeste, the only member that doesn't have that high mobility right now. Obviously, we've yet to see their last pick, but I would expect it to be someone else who can use that mobility, dive on through. Unless Kestrel doesn't get taken here, I could see potentially a Kestrel coming through as their final pick, just to have another ranged burst hero.
Biggest difference for Wolves esports this week, and we can definitely see how it plays out throughout the game, is got to be their drafting. I really like this draft. They have a very early game oriented composition where they can be confident and comfortable taking fights early and often. And as long as they can execute those appropriately and find the picks that they need to, the kills that they need to, and be able to translate that into their macro play in order to pick up the important objectives, I think that that could potentially go a long way for them today, assuming they finish out the rest of their draft well.
Yeah, and they're just going to grab an Arden there. There's really not many other options remaining for the captain, with the captain already being picked, Lyra and Tony being banned. You could have gone Fortress maybe. You could have maybe looked into something like a Lance, but we have not seen Lance be terribly effective in the 5 versus 5 just yet. I love Arden on 5v5 as a hero, though. I think he brings so much to the table. You can control team fights, especially against a dive-heavy team like this. You throw down a great positioned gauntlet, and all of a sudden your opponents aren't going anywhere. So the Grace to round out the composition is going to leave a little bit of question mark of, is it going to be the carry Grace or the carry Catherine? I think you can easily flex that into either one and be happy with your composition.
Absolutely. A lot of protection there for the side of Salty Potatoes, making sure that they're keeping the Celeste alive as long as possible.
All right, now that the picks and the bans are in, Tasty, who do you think we should be paying close attention to on Wolves Esports?
I'm going to be looking at Chrysior here just because last week he had the least deaths of anyone on this team, but he's the captain. This is the player that you typically want to be on your front lines, want to be soaking up damage and taking those deaths for your team if needed. So I want to just keep an eye on how he's positioning in these fights, because we saw last week a lot of times he was the first one out of these team fights, which, again, yes, you want your captain to stay alive long enough to get their utility out. You want them to get their activatable items down. But if you're just running from the fight and abandoning your teammates, you're not going to win any of these team fights. So I really want to see Chrysior be able to step up here today.
Yeah, finding the line between dying when necessary and keeping yourself alive when you don't have to die. Very hard to navigate between, but he needs to be comfortable going in, taking the fall for his team, setting up his carries to do the work for him.
I mean, any bit of damage you take is damage one of your carries isn't, so.
Exactly. So on the flip side of the table, for the side of Salty Potatoes, Aristocratic, one of the newer players, definitely an up-and-comer through the Challenger Series, gotten himself on a top team here in the VPL. Definitely has some room to improve. He looked really good on this Lyra. Definitely wanting to make sure that he continues, some of that continues growing. He looked really good, especially in his positioning in a lot of these team fights, keeping his teammates alive and definitely putting out a lot of damage when he's in that carry role.
And as that's one of the other things that's kind of interesting about Salty Potatoes is their flexibility to go from, with Aristocratic playing in a carry or in a captain. They can do that with numerous members of their team. And so you kind of never really know what you're getting into, even after the draft.
All right, well, the game is underway, so let's take you to Dowsy and Stress.
Thanks very much, Erica. Wolves versus Salty Potatoes here, and potentially the closest match that we have in front of us today, Stress. Both these teams coming in fairly equally standing. One of them, though, will have to take the win.
Yeah, of course, one of them is going to separate that scoreline, but I kind of want to give a little bit, maybe, of a buy over to Wolves to the fact that they got just destroyed by Clash last week in one of the games. So we don't really know what to expect from them in an even game. So not necessarily benefit of the doubt, but now that's just something that I'm looking forward to, seeing just how close these two teams are against each other. A lot of mid-lane skirmishes to start this off, just back and forth. But no invades from either squad on the orbs. This is maybe one of the first games we've had here in Europe where this has actually happened.
Yeah, no, they're both teams going to be sticking to the norm of staying in their jungle. Oftentimes, we find that the team that invades early is the team that wins the game because they get that early foothold. So playing that macro game very early on, but not the case here. One thing, though, that we have to talk about is Wolves, the team that was put together. All these players come from the European Challenger Series, all very good at the game. Keygas has really put this team together and been trying to brainchild it the whole time. And most people know Keygas from his time at Fnatic as an analyst. So it's really interesting to see how they play this, because you have to think that if Wolves are going to win in any way, it's going to be their macro game.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll have to watch the later this game goes. They're trying for some micro plays early on with Astral flipping on that crawl to try and dissuade some of the jungle and try and get onto the Joker early on, who's on this Celeste. We've seen so much Celeste, and it's going to be another tough game, I feel, for Celeste. You got the Taka in the game, you got a Crow, you got so many...
Speaking of Taka, timing the turret Paprika, trying to find Esquire there, doesn't quite find the kill and has to pop his flask, almost goes down to a turret shot. That's an interesting lane. The Taka versus the Idris, as the Paprika tries his best to get in close. Starting Stormguard banner as well for the better clear. Interesting start. I wonder if he will finish that into a Storm Crown or just use it for the early game.
Yeah, we'll see as we go further through the game. Also, this Idris you've seen going CP route as well.
Yeah.
Just we have
crystal
seen
bits.
the weapon power as well, but when you see 5 crystal bits, you're like, well, that basically is exactly where you're going on this. So we'll see how Esquire can actually play maybe this kind of assassin role for himself.
5 crystal bits Idris does a shocking amount of damage. It does delay your build just a little bit because you are buying unnecessary items, but the reason Esquire has done this is because it unlocks his crystal power Divergent Paths passive, meaning his auto attacks now do crystal damage, so and have range. So gets him to that point that Idris wants to be very early on, level 3, and we'll have to see exactly how much a Chakram does do to the Paprika, who didn't pick up any shielding on his way back. You have to think it will hurt. Asteroid and Simi moving on in here, putting the pressure onto Aeon on this Grayson. There's first blood. It's classed, finding it onto Chrysal there. Captain v Captain.
Captain v Captain. Sneaky just there to pick up the assist for himself, and he had a massive week last week. Sneaky actually looking really strong himself. We saw quite a bit out of him. I took a bunch of notes, and Sneaky's just like, I kept writing down like, Sneaky's the player to watch, Sneaky's the player to watch. And so we'll see on this Reza. We talked a little bit earlier about how strong the Reza pick has been for a lot of people, so it's kind of on his shoulders a little bit. If this Idris isn't the one that carries, maybe it'll be Sneaky.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, Salty Potatoes invading on in, looking for that weapon Treant, and it is going to go the way of the Joker here. Chrysal now being slowed by those auto attacks, but really not something that they wanted to contest. Gold Oak, though, lots of gold, and Class moves in to block those ballasted verdicts. However, somehow, Simi finds the snipe, gets that Gold Oak, securing it for Wolves. That's a massive thing for them. And now they've just caught out Salty Potatoes completely. Big fight in the jungle. Where will this one go? Chrysal first to die. That's going to be the trade coming on through, though, as 2 men go down in the end for Salty Potatoes. Wolves really finding what they needed there.
Yeah, Krull and Vox picking up a kill down on that bottom side. Now Simi's going to try and at least do some damage to Class in that middle lane. Doesn't quite connect, but again, opening up this jungle now. Through comes Vox in order to try and pick up this crystal tree. And Class is so low here, got to be very careful.
Does have that Storm Guard banner, reducing all the damage that comes out of Simi, but once it expires, that's when a Malice and Verdict is going to knock him dead. Does escape. Currently gold, fairly even between these two teams. Action back and forth. Much slower paced game here, Stress, compared to our previous two, but we do see a gank attempt in the bot lane. I don't think it's going to be too successful. Lots of damage done, but Sneaky fairly safe.
Yeah, just damage. Asteroid and Kigaza backing away. Maybe this time, though, bringing down that Arden. Maybe they just want to go for this. Sneaky's not too healthy down here.
Yeah, he's going to be in trouble. Reza very mobile, but not mobile enough as Kigaza's auto attack finds a kill. Aeon diving in with that weapon power Grace. Does do a lot of damage when he does auto attack, but not really wanting to find himself a 1-3. Instead, goes up and proxies the wave, much like Wolves, to make sure this turret cannot be attacked. Very smart move coming through from Aeon to just shut down the potential push that Wolves wanted to go for.
Yeah, and of course Aeon knows he's pretty safe at this point under the tower with only 2 minions alive. Chrysale's going to stick around here. They're going to try and push it down. Actually goes aggressive.
Yeah, that's going to be Kigaza taking the turret, jumps on out with the shield, but Asteroid will lose his life. Turret goes down. Good win for Wolves, but how much are they going to lose for it? Chrysal down to half health. Aeon trying to chase Kigaza, but Kigaza's going to play smart and make sure he walks away from that fight. The question is, can Salty Potatoes push down their turret now and really just equalize the standings on gold?
Yeah, there is a large wave in front of it for Sneaky as well. Vox will do a good job of clearing it out, though, with that second ability, the passive, as well as it bounces. But there is a route onto Aeon.
Be able to get that healing train for himself. Ultimate goes out to apply resonance, and that's going to be Kigaza clearing the wave on this Fox. Salty Potatoes trying to dive. Sneaky does go in with the help of the ultimate from Aeon. Remember, not only does Grace's Retribution heal you, but it also provides the damage reduction shielding, making sure that Sneaky will take less damage on that dive.
Yeah, and that's so crucial. We're going to see that have big impact in the team fights the later this goes, because you cannot underestimate not only the healing, but as you said, that damage reduction is going to be key.
Esquire moving on in, does find himself a cheeky steal onto that Crystal Treant. The Paprika finding out that Crystal Power Idris hurts a lot. Dives on in. Esquire going for this fight here with that Crystal Trio, healing of himself and finding the kill. Nice stuff. Over though, on the other side of the map, it's a 1-for-1, turning dumb for Wolves here as Salty Potatoes chase on in. Kigaza gets involved in the fight. Weapon Power Fox doing some damage here, looking for Class, but is Class really the target you want? Can he pick himself up that Weapon Power buff? No, he can't. Dodging and diving, managing to find himself falling back to the Sanctuary as a Supernova takes his life. Very messy fights from both Salty Potatoes and, of course, Wolves here. But as I say that, Simi pretty much reaffirming my point, taking a kill and potentially looking for more as the Joker and Sneaky stick around here. Esquire roaming down from the top side. This is going to be Sneaky diving on in. Can he go for it? Heal comes out from the Grace. Ultimate from Reza Chrysor, looking to be out in the wrong position. They are blue side, remember, so they have to run back to the base. And they catch them out. Yes, Aeon will split the fight. Sneaky needs to make sure he doesn't die. Is going to be Esquire and Aeon finding that kill there. Sneaky barely alive. 8-5 so far on the scoreboard and 1,000 gold in the lead for Salty Potatoes.
Yeah, we went from a quiet start to this game to now 13 kills in 9 minutes total. As at this point, that was one of the most extended fights we've had. I feel like Class may have stuck around a little longer than he would have liked normally, but they were trying to pick up some kills on the back end of the fight. We've got another situation now. Look at where Vox and Krull are on the map. Krull actually going to utilize that passive in the bush, trying to just get as much of that movement speed down to try and catch out Aeon, but I think Aeon's going to be fine here. Yeah, actually just going to back out.
More wanting the CS than the fight there. It makes sense, really. As a weapon-powered Vox, it's all about accelerating yourself towards late-game presence. And so going for the items rather than the fight makes sense, but does mean that Salty Potatoes to push themselves further into the lead here, Stress.
And they have been able to at least deter a lot of the push in mid lane as well. We've talked about how important that is. This is the first attempt at a Ghost Swing, though, in this game. Normally, we see people go for that after you take a pick or take a fight, but this is dying pretty quickly. Remember, they have Krull involved in this, so he can do a lot of damage and sustain himself up. But here comes the fight. Sneaky moving in as well as Class.
Neverform Detonator steals the Ghost Wing. That's gonna be Sneaky taking that one for Salty Potatoes. Arden Ultimate goes out, finding the kill onto Sneaky. Another goes the way of Simi, and this is looking like a cleanup now for Wolves. Double kill comes through. Can they find any more for Simi? Gonna be the Celeste losing her life and Paprika cleaning it up. Ace comes out for Wolves, has still gone wrong for the Salty Potatoes.
Oh, as good as the steal was, the ace kicks in, and now it's going to be damage to that mid tower. We were talking about how Salty Potatoes had managed to deter Wolves from that mid lane, be able to take control, but it all goes wrong in front of Ghost Wing. First Ghost Wing of the game is a backfire on both sides for once, and that's one tower going down for Wolves. Now they're going to bid a retreat in the mid lane, but you look at that picks, you look at the Samuel, you look at the Krull, the Vox. These are picks that are going to ramp up over time as well, and we haven't seen Paprika's impact in the game. He's mostly been held by this Idris, so maybe this generation of gold to keep the gap close between the two is exactly what Wolves needed.
Yeah, a little bit different coming on from Paprika here, playing a Crystal Power Tucker lane. Up in that top side. That Stormguard banner did get completed into a Storm Crown and now has that Aftershock as well for the burst damage. So very interesting to see that. Has a lot more late game threat than a Weapon Power Tucker. Something Wolves can definitely use a lot of, considering Crystal Power Idris and Crystal Power Celeste has a lot of late game threat that you have to be wary of. Asteroid, well, he's a gunner. Can Kigaza find anything is the question as he throws out his ultimate Chrysor coming from the other side, but Kigaza, I don't think he can escape a Reza. Trying his best. Kigaza will lose his life in just a second to a Scorcher. It looks like not. Sneaky, diving. He wants this, but he's not going to find it. And now it's the fight breaking out on the other side as Salty Potatoes just clean it up entirely. Wolves, it backfires. Simi, last man standing up in the river. Trying to fall backwards, but Esquire comes on through. Class very low. Mouse and Verdict's doing work here.
Yeah, Sneaky.
He should be able to assassinate, you think, as he dives on in, pops the shield from that flask and finds the burst necessary to take out Simi in the end. A 3 for none in favor of Salty Potatoes.
Well, we told you it was going to be close. We didn't predict it quite being this bloodthirsty between the two teams. Salty Potatoes and Wolves is back and forth taking fights extended all the way through. And You have to feel at one point you've got to slow down, because although, yes, there is gold going over to both sides, you look at now, Salty Potatoes have started accruing another gold lead after a one fight. For Wolves, we've talked about how they want to go a little bit late game. They've addressed their win conditions with this Crystal Power Attacker, some of the other picks. They have to stop giving away gold over to Salty Potatoes, and that's going to have to be playing a little bit, more passively, a little bit more defensive. But they are going for potentially another Ghost Wing at this point, as it is about to spawn. I was going to say Blacklaw. We haven't even had one spawn today yet.
Right. 2 minutes until that happens, Stress, and I think it might actually happen here in EU. Wolves grouping up in the bot side here. 5-man push, but Esquire taking turrets in the top side. It is going to be a bit of a base race as Wolves do jump onto the turret here. That Stormguard banner helping out so much with the turret taken. There's the ultimate gauntlet coming out. They're all trapped up. Salty Potatoes, can they escape? That's going to be the Crucible to find their way out, but oh my dear, Aeon gets put to sleep and he will lose his life. Esquire still pushing to mind you. That armory turret almost dead as Joker finds a kill with the Solar Storm. Gaza will have to fall back with Asteroid as this fight breaks out, and it looks like Esquire will finally lose his life, but taking the armory turret, realistically, it is going to be Salty Potatoes coming out on top of that. It's not over yet, as Class takes down Chrysler, locking him up. Sneaky and the Joker chasing. Asteroid does jump in. Good reflex block comes out of Asteroid. The Joker going very low. Asteroid to snipe. Is he gonna smite? It doesn't look like he's in range. There he gets it. Tensionbow finds the shutdown, and now he's looking for Sneaky as well. Putting the stacks on up. Sneaky going down very low, but Aeon comes on in. This should be Salty Potatoes turning and finishing off Chrysler as well as of that cruel Asteroid loses his life. Risky plays potentially as Kigaza and Paprika take down this Ghost Wing, but the Storm Crown really just makes those neutral objectives so easy. The true damage to neutral objectives really coming on top.
And that's only going to get easier on 3.2 as well, and more impactful when Ghostwing gets taken down. I mean, that's one of the most frustrating things as a Crawl player, when you think you've got that smite lined up and you're like, yes, I'm just going to hit ability 2, I've got this kill, I'll turn and kill someone else, and you get disrupted. And suddenly you have to go chasing. Suddenly you have to try and do that last little bit of work so that you can go back to the fight. And luckily for Asteroid, he managed to get dash up, get that kill. But some very, very extended fights between these two teams. And at this point, it's gone back and forth again, but still maintains a small gold lead now for Salty Potatoes. And we just had that first Black Claw of the game land. Suddenly, the game becomes a whole lot more tense. It's all now about vision control around the top side. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that split push component down bottom side as well here, just to try and drag a member of the team down across the map and take an advantageous fight around Black Claw.
Yeah. Wolves want this fight. 3/5 of the team do have that Ghost Wing buff, and Paprika diving on in, trying to find the burst onto Esquire, but he's going to lose his life. Here comes that Garden Ultimate, stunning up 2. That Crucible a little bit too late, but it might not be enough for Wolves, as it is going to be the turnaround. Double kill comes through for Esquire. Made that a triple kill as he's going to chase down Kigaza. Simi has been split as well. Esquire wants the quadra, but Kigaza's not having any of it. Simi will lose his life here to Sneaky in just a second. Sneaky, though, will play it slow. Will Sneaky dump in? That's the question. Madisonberg's hurt. So does Spellfire. I think he might actually just let Simi go here. He wants to go in. Simi, backing up, finds the kill. Dodges the Solar Storm. No, he doesn't. That Spellfire's ticking away, but he will get the back port. Whilst that all happens, Salty Potatoes will take the first Black Claw. They've only gone and done it, the Mad Lads. Black Claw unleashed, and oh dear, Simi does lose his life to Aeon as well. So 30 seconds, they don't have their main damage source to take down this Black Claw.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot of the Salty Potatoes team around the Black Claw to continue this push. It's going to do damage on this first turret, but look at the bottom lane at the same time. There is a fight, so we'll stay on mid. Yeah,
it is going to be the Joker trying to run away. Does manage to get so. That turret taking a lot of damage as Wolves does push them back. But like you mentioned, Esquire in the bot lane taking his second armory turret by himself. Paprika dives on in, but good positioning from Esquire puts him very far out of the fight. Joker doing his best to help the Black Claw here. Looks like mid armory turret will fall. And that's the entire base open now for Salty Potatoes. Esquire diving over the wall. He's gone hybrid! Esquire's gone hybrid! it. He has both weapon power and crystal power divergent paths unlocked, and that's gonna be the Armory losing its life in both the bot and mid lane. Salty Potatoes jumping on in, double kill comes through for the Idris, maybe losing his life as he does go down. A silence from Key Gazet, but he will lose to Sneaky. Salty Potatoes to close out their third straight victory in the European VPL Preseason Invitational, looking very strong. If a bit messy in this game against Wolves here, Stress.
Little messy, but in the end there was a bit of a surprise for not only us but Wolves, as Esquire just going rampant through the base. Like, that was an impressive performance out of Esquire, and Salty Potatoes, as you said, 3-0. I'm looking forward to some of their stronger matchups when we see them against the likes of Queso and of course against Clash. Like, this is a team that I really think people have to be watching out for.
Certainly will do. Salty Potatoes surprising many potentially, and that's going to be that third game here in EU completed. Desk, what did you make of that one?
Thanks,